The unemployment crisis continues to bite, with nearly 1.72 million Kenyans rendered jobless since March this year. The country could be staring at a time bomb. On the front row tonight, we seek to unpack what best way forward to tackle the jobs crisis and what will it take to get the youth into gainful employment. I am your host for today, Abi Agina, sitting in for my colleague Akisa Wandera. Let's get the ball rolling with introducing our guests to drive this all-important discussion here on the program. First off, we have Jacqueline Madenge, who is the board chair of the Youth Alive Kenya. Jacqueline Madenge serves as the board chair for Youth Alive, an organization that seeks to uplift the youth through advocacy, empowerment and mentorship. Jacqueline is a program management expert with over 12 years of experience in the non-profit sector across national and international organizations. Her expertise covers governance and human rights programming and international development. Well, moving on to our next guest for this particular discussion, we have none other than Dr. Alfred Mutua, who is the governor of Machakos County and the Maendeleo Chap party leader. He has been in public service, having previously served as the Kenyan government spokesman before resigning in 2012 to run for the office of Machakos County Governor. On Sunday, Dr. Mutua launched his 2022 presidential bid with the promise to create 5 million jobs, among other raft of reforms tailored to benefit the common mwananchi. Well, over and above that, we shall be also getting to know our final guest, that is Mr. Ken Gishinga. He is the chief economist at Mentore Economics. His primary role is to provide an independent macroeconomic outlook on the economy. Prior to this, Ken served as a senior economist at the Commercial Bank of Africa and Equity Bank, as well as a business analyst at Microsoft in Seattle in the United States of America. Ken holds an economics degree from Harvard University and was a recipient of the inaugural Business Daily Top 40 Under 40 Award in 2011. Ken is also a regular economics contributor on various media platforms. Welcome. This is the Front Row. Remember, you can engage with us on our social media platforms appearing at the bottom end of the screen. You can tweet me at Agina Abe. You can also use our hashtag to pass on your comments. Our hashtag for this discussion is Front Row. Well, let's dive right into this very important discussion. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this very all-important debate around the unemployment crisis in the country. Well, I'd like to kick it off with getting some opening remarks from Dr. Alfred Mutua. Just fresh off the weekend, you did touch on how you would be able to create 5 million jobs. We are already staring at a very unprecedented crisis right now in the country, where we have over 1.7 million youth who have been rendered jobless ever since the COVID pandemic struck earlier in March. What are your immediate reactions to all these numbers that we keep getting from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics?
Well, I'm not shocked, because we've been on a trend for the last 60 years whereby we are basically struggling as a nation. When you look at where we were at independence in 1963, when Jomo Kenyatta declared that we are going to fight poverty, fight all these problems, we started well, but then we seem to have stopped somewhere in between. We lost our track. Now, the economy in Kenya has been shrinking. The population is much younger than it used to be. We have not embraced manufacturing. We got into an era where we were importing things. We started being the end result or the market for other manufacturers. So we did not enhance our manufacturing. Our government system was set up actually to constrain and strangle businesses, such that investors started fleeing out of this country. The amount of bureaucracy in our country does not allow for businesses to grow, especially the small and medium enterprises that are the ones that employ young people. So here we are, we introduced free primary education, then we introduced free secondary education, Then we introduce good and we expand our colleges. More people are getting educated. Here we are, we've got the baby boom that happened from the 1980s. So we are churning out in the 90s, we're churning out a lot of young people who are not just young, but also educated with a lot of energy. But the marketplace, the businesses are not growing. The growth of businesses in this country is very slow because of slow implementation. So as a result, it's where we are. Actually, I feel that the figure of 1.7 is massaged. For me, it's more like 2.5 million people are the ones who are unemployed in this country.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mutua. Of course, those are conservative numbers by your estimations, which, of course, are neither here nor there, especially when you look at what the Bureau does. But let me also open it up, this discussion, to Madam Jacqueline. What are your opening remarks around where we are as a country when you look at the unemployment numbers being bandied around, some saying 40% of the population is unemployed?
Thank you very much. The statistics are quite staggering, to say the very least, especially because, as Honorable Mutua has stated, they are probably massaged numbers. And I think that the biggest challenge is that there's lack of strategy around how to deal with the issue of unemployment, particularly around young people in Kenya. The youth, of course, are the most affected. And unfortunately, they've also been most affected by the COVID pandemic when it comes to the number of people who've lost their jobs. So in terms of advocacy, there's still a lot that needs to be done, but it's certainly not enough. There are more practical strategies that also have an element of sustainability that definitely need to be embraced by government and private sector.
All right, thank you for that, Madam Jacqueline. Let me bring in Mr. Gishenga. Well, already the two other panelists have set the ball rolling. I'd like you to also chip in and just give us your overall perspective around the unemployment crisis in the country.
Well, thank you, and good evening, Abby.
Good evening.
I completely agree with the sentiments of Dr. Mutua. Ever since independence, we've achieved political freedom in this country, but we've never really achieved economic freedom. Every time we go to economic sessions, we are told about GDP, about inflation, but we are never really told about where we are with jobs numbers. Even if you look at the numbers from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, it's only this year that we got the first quarterly report on jobs. If you look at other countries such as the US, there's always a monthly jobs report. So even from a measurement perspective, it's almost impossible to measure where we are as a country. So I think the ball is on the government's court to really transform our political economy into jobs production by really looking at things such as stimulating business and stimulating enterprise.
All right, thank you so much for those opening remarks. And let me take it back to you, Dr. Mutua. Well, what you raised earlier on is the fact that what I gather is there's been a lot of miscalculated moves when it comes to planning as a country and having a strategic plan around creating jobs. And what do we need to do to get back on track? Because at the end of the day, the young people have gone to college, they're out there looking for opportunities which are seemingly hard to find.
It's very clear, as my panelists have pointed out, we have challenges. First of all, we are not even able to track. That's what Mr. Gidege is talking about. We are not able to track because you can't be getting figures once or every 2 years. You need to be getting monthly figures so that we know that unemployment is going down or going up, so that you know. In Machakos, I'm able to track because I have been in the business of creating jobs, trying to support the industries, manufacturing and all that. Now, to answer your question, for us to be able to provide jobs, we have to widen the cake. For us to widen the cake, because as it is right now, the cake that is on the table, the ugali that is on the table, or the bread on the table, is not enough for everyone because so many people are out there. The largest employer anywhere in the world is the small and medium enterprise. The small and medium enterprise in Kenya is stifled by bureaucracy. It is very difficult to run businesses in this country. Either the KRA is after you, or you need so many documents. Here you are paying bribes. It becomes very, very difficult. Access to credit is also a challenge. When I was working for Mwai Kibaki, we were pushing very much for there to be an opening in terms of access to credit. The government, it's good, came through with the youth fund, which we started during Kibaki's days, and now they have the women fund and others, but people are still not accessing it because initially our concept was to have a youth fund whereby the salaries of those who are operating the fund comes from the exchequer's government salaries. But now they band it up in the youth fund and in whatever you do. So the interest rate is still high. When I lived in the US, when I lived in Australia and in the UAE, interest rates, when you take a loan for Biashara, is 2 to 5%, even 1%. That's the interest rate. When they want to grow the economy in America, they massage the interest rate. 0.2%, 1%. In Kenya, you're lucky if you get anything less than 15%, and you're a young person who wants to start a job. So as a result of that, there's a big gap. So for us to grow the economy, we need to support the small and medium enterprise. They're the ones who are going to employ people. We need to cut down on the bureaucracy, and we need to have an innovative way of increasing manufacturing in our country so that we can widen the cake, so that more people can get jobs in both manufacturing and service industry because they go hand in hand.
Very interesting sentiments there, Dr. Mutua. I'd like to still stay with you. When you look at what you've really touched on around the high cost of credit, of course,
yes,
the lack of sufficient data for us to know what exactly, how deep is the problem as a country. Perhaps, is there a model that you'd be able to point us in the right direction when it comes to how can we as a country also say we need to tackle this issue of unemployment? Because the youths out there who are actually watching this show, they just want solutions.
Mm-hmm. Well, it all begins in the kitchen. If every night you eat a meal and you get stomach upset and you spend the whole night in the toilet, after a while you start to question the cook. So what we've been doing is that we've been hiring the wrong cooks. The leaders that we employ from all the strata, from the top to the bottom, as a society, we don't look at whether they are able to understand economics and whether they're able to understand how to make money, how to grow money. So that is the first problem. Mm-hmm. So here we are, mheshimiwa apigiwe kura, lakini huyu mheshimiwa haelewi how money flows. So we need our people to understand that we need to look at leaders who understands macro and microeconomics, who understand how to grow money. Now, for me, the first thing, and it's the first stage, would be to make it easier for people to breathe. Kenyans are feeling strangled, young people, everybody, by eliminating bureaucracy. For example, if you want to register a company in this country, Kenya, and you're coming from overseas and you want to put in $1 billion shillings, it will take you a minimum of 18 months, if not 2 years, to register and actually start constructing. In Rwanda, it is at most 1 month, most of the time 2 weeks. Now, will I come to Kenya with my money, or will I take that money to Rwanda or to South Africa or to other countries where we can start early? The rules that we have in this country are made by us. They are not set in stone. We are the ones who make these rules. So we adopted a culture of bureaucracy which facilitates corruption. Because if you need 20 documents and you have to go to 20 offices and everything is taking forever to be processed, unatoa kitu kidogo so that now it can be processed faster.
Yes.
So that the first thing I would do would be to eliminate bureaucracy. And that's what I plan to do when I take over, God's willing, in 2022. Eliminate bureaucracy. Make it easier for people to breathe. Make it easier for our young people to actually go out and apply for jobs or do whatever they need to do or start businesses in a very simple manner. The second thing that I'll do is that make this country attractive to investors. And you do that through different ways. One is ensure that the security in this country is assured. People do not want to come and invest in a country where they're afraid that you come and invest here, you bring your wife here, she goes for a walk or a run, and she's raped. People want to invest in countries like Dubai, whereby your daughter, your wife can walk in the middle of the night and they're okay. So we need to sort out insecurity in our country. And you do that by enhancing the quality of life of the police officers, the recruitment age and the recruitment qualifications of police officers, and also bringing in a new sense of how we do law and order. The second thing is judiciary. Now, if I'm coming to invest here and I have a dispute, I'd like that dispute to be sorted out within a week, not 5 years, not 10 years. So I'm not going to come to Kenya where the commercial court takes forever, where the courts take forever for disputes. Now, I know that the Chief Justice and the courts, since the days of Mutunga, have introduced new systems whereby we can now have the, what are they calling them? We can have the
alternative dispute resolution, yes.
Alternative dispute resolution, ADRs, yes.
Yes.
No, but still it takes forever. So that's the second thing I'll do, is I would empower the judiciary. Judiciary needs empowering. It needs more money, but they also need to agree they need to do things faster. The third thing is also to eliminate corruption. You fight corruption by also ensuring that court cases go quickly. For example, if somebody is arrested because they are asking for bribes, or it's a governor, or it's an MP, or a minister has stolen money, I would push it so that from the time you enter a plea to the time that your ruling is done is 6 months. So that if you're innocent, you go back to your work. But if you're guilty, you go in. And then we also make it difficult. So we say that if any magistrate, any legal officer, any lawyer receives a bribe to try and make a case unfair, or try to influence a case, then the judgment or the punishment will be life in prison. So we make corruption a very serious affair.
All right,
and
Governor.
Once you do that,
Thank
then
you.
you're able now to attract investors.
Very, very practical points that can actually be borrowed when it comes to running the affairs in relation to addressing the youth unemployment crisis. Well, I'll be going to my other panelists shortly, but let's just walk you through some very interesting report that was prepared by one of our colleagues, which shows that how the 1.7 million Kenyans lost their jobs between the month of April and June. This is according to a quarterly labor force report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. The report also shows that unemployment rate has doubled from 5% to 10%. Well, KTN's Brian Oti, puts some perspective into this, a very important discussion.
1 in 10 Kenyans is unemployed, a report on the country's labor force has shown. This translates to 4.6 million Kenyans currently unemployed, a figure that has doubled from 2.3 million in March. The youth bearing the greatest brunt of unemployment, those aged between 20 and 29, accounting for 2.3 million, against 4 million others within this age bracket currently in employment.
Kazi iliisha after this pandemic, and kutafuta kazi sahi imekuwa vigumu, so nikaenda kuwa tout.
Kazi hakuna, pesa hakuna, so maisha imekuwa ni ngumu. Vijana wanafanya every hustle, wanaingia mitaani. Hata sasa sahi uwizi imekuwa mingi. Hii kazi yenye tunaletewa wiki mbili hii tunabadilishwa haitusaidii.
The alarming spike in unemployment rates attributed to the COVID pandemic.
The COVID-19 emergency responses, which were necessary to keep people healthy or safe and prevent deaths, has actually led to contraction of jobs, in the sense that the number of jobless people has increased. Now, the only choices the government has right now is, we don't have one choice, which is basically what we call reopening of the economy. The only way we recover and these jobs begin to grow again is if people are kept safe.
Even so, the youth form the largest statistic of those with jobs. 6.7 million people aged between 20 and 34 are employed out of 15.8 million Kenyans. Brian Otieno, KTN News.
Thanks for that report, Brian. And let me bring it up with Madam Jacqueline. We've seen a number of initiatives that have been triggered towards creating jobs for the young people. And all this boils down to affirmative action for having the youth access tenders, for the youth also accessing cheap credit from the likes of what Dr. Alfred Mutua was talking about, the youth funds of today. Has this been effective in trying to end this unemployment burden?
I think it has had a double effect to the extent that, as Dr. Mutua mentioned earlier, there is so much bureaucracy that goes around even setting up a business in the country, and also the protocols around and the laws around setting up a business are very stringent, especially for young people who are trying to start out. So for those who have been able to go forth and start a business, and we have a few success stories even within the organization that we have seen, you still find that majority are not able to access the credit because they don't have a lot of the requirements that are needed by the government. And then when you speak about affirmative action, and even from the clip that has just been aired, there's so much unsustainability in the initiatives that the government is trying to put forward for young people. And also, there's an issue of underemployment. So we may have a lot of young people who are employed, but then are they employed to do the work that they trained for, whether it's in the vocational or at university level? And also when we speak about education, yes, we have good education in Kenya. Reports by like the WE Forum, Economic Forum, say that the education in Kenya is among the best in Africa. But the same report also cites that 30% of the employers in the industry say that the people who are being churned out of the education system don't have the relevant skills required in their workforce. So of course there's a great disconnect, and then that creates the perpetual challenge of youth unemployment, especially in this country.
All right. And Mr. Gishinga, what would be the best option when it comes to what has been raised there by Madam Jacqueline around making these funds more effective, at the same time moving away from just PR campaigns that are out to show the youth that we have things running for them, vis-a-vis actually giving them results that are tangible?
Well, when it comes to access to credit, we have to understand the entire structure. As it stands today, most banks are more pleased to buy treasury bills because they get good returns at about 7–8%. Now, if you look at the best performing sectors of the economy, most of them are growing at 5–6%. So it's very difficult for a bank to even start lending to a private enterprise when they have the option of putting it in government securities, which are risk-free. So I think that's the most important point. If you go back to the Kibaki days, treasury bills were at about 2%. So banks were more than obliged to lend to the real economy. And I think that's what we need to do, to look at. On the issue of the young people participating in the economy, I look at things such as the Kazi Mtaani program, and for me it doesn't make a lot of sense, because you have people who have done very well in their education, but the kind of work they're being given is to slash grass and to clean the mtaros. If that money, if that 10 billion shillings had been put into organizing small groups to start business and providing them loans at 1 or even 0%, we'll be able to see a multiply effect that's far more powerful. So I think those are the structural issues that have to be addressed before we look at the tangible issues.
And Ken, still staying with you, looking at the report, what are some of the key insights that you can draw from it that will really shape our next approach as a country?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a good thing that we are getting the report on a quarterly basis, but we need to go to the direction where the report comes on a monthly basis. If we could get this report on the first Friday of every month, break it down by counties, break it down by sectors, so that you can be able to say the county of Machakos in the month of July created X amount of jobs. 20% of the jobs are coming from tourism, 20% were coming from construction, then it would be so much easier to have the right types of interventions. Right now, we are almost punching in the dark because we don't really know where these numbers are coming from.
All right. Thank you, Ken, for giving us very insightful sentiments there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to proceed on a quick commercial break. When we come back, we shall be just assessing what has the COVID-19 pandemic had as a major impact on the country's economy, and how long will this last, and what is the road ahead for the youth when it comes to employment. All this coming up after this quick break here on the Front Row.